Okay, I'll give you one guess on what time it is. Flame?
I forgot my watch, man, but it kind of feels like Friday. It's Friday, baby. It is tier list day, and today we're looking at melees in Mythic Plus, because you know there's been some buffs, man, and it's been a month, like you're saying, and
I mean, I wonder
how things will look out.
Things have changed, and it's a very peculiar situation in terms of the melees, because some specs really got bumped up in terms of the number of keys, the highest keys they could do, and because of that, some of the specs that last month were in, let's say, in a more favorable position are now in a less favorable position. This doesn't mean that the specs you're going to see here are bad in any capacity. We're talking here about the highest keys that can be done.
Like half of them have progressed by like 2 to maybe 3 key levels, as opposed to the other half, which are like 1 or maybe 2 key levels. Yeah. So the gap between the top and the bottom has increased, but you can rest assured that even if the spec is going to be D tier, it might be a D tier spec, it's clearing 25s right now as we speak and going into 26s. So I mean, if you want to clear higher than that, then sure, maybe you want to know exactly what's this here. But if not, then if you just want to get your 3K achievements, conduits, whatever you want, anything on this tier list is gonna be Gucci.
Yeah, but regardless, if you want to do any type of key, you have to do it with some add-ons installed. You know, add-ons are a part of everything we do in World of Warcraft. What better way to do it than with CurseForge, sponsor of this video? Now let me tell you a story, man. Listen, the very first time I wanted to like improve my UI, because I was all about that simplicity or whatever. I was scrolling to all of the categories of the add-ons and stuff, and I watched and noticed SUI. This is how I got to install for the first time SUI, just, you know, because it's very organized on CurseForge. You can see it there on the UI interface, whatever. I clicked it, I installed it, and then a couple of months later, I looked at it, there was an update. I clicked it, I closed it, everything was Gucci. This is like one of millions of examples where you can discover new add-ons just by 2 clicks and get something that you really love, right? SUI is an example of a minimalistic UI with, you know, really darkened shades and whatnot, but there's a ton million out there, not to mention the fact that you can always update your add-ons, no problemo. Always the quality of life fixes from the app as well, and also all the add-on creators get a nice pay cut out of it, so everybody wins. They get revenue from the work they put in. That means more quality add-ons for us. So CurseForge, thank you so much, guys, for enabling this whole ecosystem here, and thank you for sponsoring the video, being a great partner for Marcelian&Online. And with that being said, let's go to the Arms Warrior.
Arms, never skip Arms Day. You never skip Arms Day anyway. But you might wanna no,
don't skip it.
All right, listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
In this 925 patch, there's been buffs to specs that were very good in Mythic Plus, and not buffs to specs that were not very good in Mythic Plus. Arms, unfortunately, is one of them. However, Arms is still rocking it solid at 25s, 26s, maybe even a higher. We have to see, because this patch has just started, and Arms also got buffs, actually, now if I recall, buffs to Overpower and Mortal's Execute for sure. I'm not 100% sure if Mortal Strike got a buff as well. However, as we're recording and we're analyzing these logs, not a lot of keys have been done in this season, at least by the less popular specs. So it's likely that whatever tier Arms is going to end up in, it's going to end up in C tier.
It's going to be C tier, let's just put it in there.
It's going to be higher in about a few weeks at the very least. Or maybe it's not going to be higher, however, the spec will be way better.
That being said, Arms is still an amazing spec to play. As Flame mentioned, you can pull off 25s, no problemo. And if you're that type of player who wants to push even further, then maybe you would consider some other specs. If not, play your Arms. You're gonna do just great, and your team will love you. Okay.
Man.
Next up on the list, Assassination Rogue. Very close to Arms, I would say.
I think if they would be like lovers going through a park, they would be holding hands. And because if they will be holding hands, they're gonna be right next to each other in a C tier.
Oh yeah, I mean it is C tier, but this doesn't mean that it's a bad spec. Actually, Assassination is very fun spec to play in keys if you like that playstyle. It's not as fluid and as fast as Sub, because Sub, as we all know, is doing really great since the last patch. But I think I always said this, in terms of like pushing the highest keys, you really make use of all of these quality of life aspects of some of these specs, and Assassination really is not, I'm not saying that it's really clunky, because it's not, but it does require a little bit more management.
Some micromanagement?
Yeah, a little bit more management than Sub, not to say Sub doesn't, but
it keeps
it's much
engaged, you
more
don't get bored. You know?
Yeah, again, I think Assassination Rogues are playing around the 24 to 25 mark keys, which again, if you like that playstyle and if you don't want to push any further than that, you'll be fine. You'll be top in the charts, no problemo. Now, time for Enhancement Shaman.
Enhancement is still doing pretty solid right now.
Decent.
This tier list, listen man, all right, so just a little caveat going into Enhancement. The tier list has been made based on, you know, how each spec is in relation to each other, and also by the total amount of, let's say, mythic score. Mythic score is not 100% relevant. It's not 100% relevant, don't give me those comments again, but it does showcase the highest keys done in time. It's like probably the best metric we have for your specs overall performance. Sure, people can be carried, but likely people cannot be carried at around 3.5k IO. I would doubt that a little bit, and I don't know who wants to be carried at 3.5k IO. That doesn't mean Enhancement is. I don't know what I'm saying.
I don't think.
But Enhancement is doing amazing right now. It's B tier, and that's why I said this, because it's still a really good spec. Actually, if you really want to take a look at the tier list, think about B tier as the good specs. The good specs that you should be able to push, I don't know, 27s, 28s,
even
maybe
28s,
getting into 30s in a few weeks.
Yeah, that could happen for sure. And you have to get another point across here, man. Remember, Enhancement before the changes was nowhere to be found. Okay, now it's performing at a very decent to I would say very decent to competitive level. You won't see it in the MDI, you won't see it on 30 plus necessarily, because there are other specs that are preferred in that capacity. Once again, there's that situation where performance can be more easily obtained. Not to say that Enhancement cannot obtain that performance, but when you want to do keys at a high level, you also want to do them in an efficient manner. And performance is there, but the time it will take for an enhancement, or I would say the chances it will take for an enhancement to get there, is a little bit slimmer than other specs that are in S tier. This is all what that we're saying.
Yeah, so Enhancement is still pretty good. It has massive damage. Its tier set kind of favors single target a little bit more than AoE, which goes to show that even with that, being in B tier right now is crazy good. If the tier set had a little bit more influence over its AoE output, we could probably see Enhancement maybe at least an A tier.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, the cats, the Pussycats, which Flame has been playing a lot.
Feral, actually.
So I'm gonna let you dive into this one, my friend.
All right. So I'm still getting into the Feral. I've done my first 20 yesterday, although it was barely done in time. Not necessarily because of me, but the damage that I had was a little bit lower than I wished, which I'm starting to see maybe what Feral can bump into it. I'm still hovering at 262 eye level, so it's still pretty good, but Feral will need a little bit of love. With that being said, let's go into the good side of things. The AoE is really good. You kind of need to micromanage it a little bit, because you do want that Berserk to hit as many targets as possible, because you do have the bleed, especially if you're playing Frenzy Band. You do want to make sure that all of the bleeds apply to the most of your ability. Getting is kind of a must, and if you do get all of that, you can go over 20s easy. If I can do 20s at 262 eye level, you can definitely do 25s and higher at 270.
No, but there are logs for Ferals doing 25s, no problem.
Yeah, Maysteen is a god, still #1 Feral in the world, respect. But Feral
for sure.
is top of C tier. There's still a gap between the Enhancement and the B tier specs, which we're gonna go into a little bit more later. But Feral is leading the charge of the, hey guys, we need some buffs too, gang.
We need some love too, yeah. I mean, Feral is a great spec. I always loved it. I discovered it and played it quite a lot in Shadowlands. I was expecting its performance to be way better, especially when I first saw the tier set, but obviously it got nerfed and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely in need of some buffs. However, a lot of these specs that you're going to see here in C tier are very, very powerful in Tyrannical weeks. It really depends on what week, because we're looking at the logs of the week prior, so it kind of happens that, you know, if it's Tyrannical, you're going to see a different situation. If it's Fortified, then
Yeah. Well, with that being said, Pharaoh is kind of good in both. Has one of the best single targets in the game,
that's
and the AOE bleed actually ramps up higher in dungeons. You probably won't get a high performance with Feral in low keys. Remember that you do rely a lot on bleeds, even though the
same thing with Assassination.
Yeah, same thing like that. So if you're running Ferals in lower keys where shit dies quick, and if you have like a pump or like a Destro Warlock or something in your party,
say goodbye.
It's hard to get that damage because shit just doesn't live long enough.
Yes. Okay, Frost Death Knight, another
DK.
Powerhouse in terms of both AOE and single target. This together with other specs that are in B tier now kind of dropped from A tier because some of the specs that got into S tier really bumped up the key level. However, Arms is a fucking beast. It's currently Frost. Sorry, man.
You need your arms to play Frost DK anyway.
I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. No, but it's actually in front of Enhancement in B tier.
Yeah, they're very close. They kind of go hand in hand. I was surprised too because I've been playing Frost. Blood and Frost were mostly my played DK specs, and Frost is my best gear alt right now, and probably it's kind of competing with my Destro right now, but it is higher on eye level, so that can be a thing. But Frost DK can pump, and it's really good. Obviously, if you're playing Breath, you're a little bit reliant on, having uptime. It's kind of hard to do stuff like explosives and, not spiteful stuff like that. You don't really, or sanguine, you don't really want to break away from your target. However, you can definitely play Obliteration, and Obliteration up until 20 keys, and even higher, it still really pumps, and that's kind of what I play right now, and it's fucking slapping, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of these melees are quite dependent on their tank. I think more so than some of the range specs, just because you give the example of Feral. Now you need all of those mobs clumped up, pulled together in order to get the most benefit of Berserk. With the tier set and stuff, same thing with Breath. You need all of the mobs over there, and if you disconnect, then that's a big problem. Melees tend to have a little bit more dependency on how the tank, gets to move along and keep the mobs together. Okay, that being said, let's go to a spec that doesn't really have a big problem with this because it moves a lot smooth as butter. Fury Warrior, which does take the lead into B tier, another former A tier spec, but once again, there's others that took the cake. I mean, we're talking what, 27, 28 at this point?
Probably even higher. So right now, when you look at the B tier, you can think of the B tier as a former A tier collection of specs. Is just that the other specs just bumped so much.
Yeah, this is what happens. I mean, you talk about Fury Warrior, right? And talk about this argument where you have to do keys in time and deliver that performance with a very smooth gameplay and mechanic. This is Fury Warrior basically. Now, it's competition when it comes to melees, right? Is doing that even better and even more efficient. This is why it dropped from A tier. And most of these specs that were formerly A tier, this is the main reason why. We're gonna get to some of the S tier specs shortly, and you're gonna understand why.
It's solid. It's solid. With anything in B tier, if you want to discover the higher range of keys, and these are the specs that you like, you can pick them up easy.
Okay, now one differentiator who has retained its position in A tier since a month ago.
Yeah, well,
Havoc Demon Hunter, baby.
This is very interesting because this is actually the alt that I'm working on as we speak. I don't have any tier set, and I'm playing the Venthyr build. It's fucking stupid. I can see it. Yeah. You can in single target without a tier set anything, you can have 100% uptime on it, no problem.
It's amazing. I've seen this is kind of the play for Havocs right now, and I've seen them in raids as well.
It's kind of fun.
I mean, it's fun. Listen, man, with all the shit that Havoc has been brought to or whatever, there's no denying Havoc Demon Hunters were always a fun spec to play. Call it brain dead, call it broken, call it whatever. It had its moments.
I wouldn't call it brain dead anymore.
No, not by a long shot.
Yeah, but Havoc is an important part of this tier list because it definitely performs a level above Fury, Frost, and Enhancement as well, but it's still not S tier. But Havoc is basically doing, I think, I might be wrong, but I think it's probably doing 30s at this point. At least some of the top Havoc players are doing 30s right now with Havoc.
Yeah, and it's another argument to be made here for Havocs is that because also Destro locks are a very, very big presence in keys and big.
You can use a Havoc, keys. You know what I'm saying?
That Chaos brand will enable those even more. There's always this, right? If you're gonna have a Havoc that performs well, that Chaos brand is just another awesome and very good addition to the range DPS, which usually can be a mage or a warlock or whatever. This time it's a warlock, so you can see also that link over there. A tier, no problem, 30 keys, let's go. Now, next up on the list.
Speaking of A tier, I juked you. I fooled you. You thought this one is gonna be A tier.
Even though Outlaw, they're seeing some buffs. I'm not sure it's enough, but I've been looking at Forever Guy posting and the Red Rogue, and it doesn't seem to be enough to actually bump up. I mean, okay, you will not see Outlaw at the same level they used to be.
Well, first let's put it into the tier so we could,
it's
because
I think this is the D tier still.
Yeah, this is the shit spec. Okay, it's not shit, right? It's doing. I think they're breaking into 26s right now, as I was able to see.
A couple of logs,
so most of them actually, I haven't seen Assassination break into 26s so far, but Outlaw is. So this is interesting. The logs aren't, and the analysis isn't complete as of now because the patch just started. However, it's doing better than last patch. However better it's doing, I'll let you talk about it because...
no, this is the thing, because when you're going to see a couple of logs with 26s, but they're not that many, right? However, you see a lot more logs on Assassination on 24s and 25s, which you don't see on Outlaw. This is why it's in D tier right now. In terms of its buffs, once again, looking at Red Rogue and then Forever Guy, and then just going to Ravenhold and stuff, it doesn't seem to be enough, and it doesn't really address all the issues that Outlaw players are currently facing. It's gonna be good. Any buff is good and it's gonna bump up the performance, but you're not going to see Outlaw at the level it used to be. This is the point I was trying to make. And, it's a little bit of a shame, honestly, because it dropped down so much. Outlaw was always built for a very potent cleave and AoE performance, and it's not there.
This is a remark to people who are talking about, buffing or nerfing the top specs. Outlaw has been at the top of the meta for almost the entire of BFA, and right now, sure, you get different specs in the spotlight, that's fine.
It's also in Shadowlands, man. Season 1, I got my KSM with Outlaw. People will not accept me in groups as sub or Assassination.
Oh, there you go.
Season 1, Outlaw was the shit.
But that's the thing, right? If sure, you don't have to have Outlaw as a top dog all the time. However, the way it's doing right now, it's I think they've just been treated poorly, man, because of probably the AoE cap, which is something that I keep hearing from Outlaw. I don't know how important that is.
That is true, yeah, that is true.
But they have buffed Blade Flurry. I think it does 10 to 20% more. The transfers 10 to 20% more damage, right?
Yeah, but still, it's not enough. I mean, I'm all for incremental buffs and small tuning and stuff, but it's clear that with all of this that happened to Outlaw so far, it needs a lot more.
It might need, because I think it buffed Pistol Shot, Between the Eyes, Blade Flurry, but not, was it Dispatch? Is that the standard finisher?
I don't remember.
That wasn't buffed. That's the thing, but I don't know what the name of it is. But
Dispatch is the
finisher,
yeah,
that wasn't buffed. So I can see that Blade Flurry transfers a little bit more damage, but it also transfers more damage from the generators and Between the Eyes. But Dispatch, which is probably one of the biggest hitter, it probably should have been addressed as well. Who knows? Maybe we'll see that in a couple of weeks.
Hopefully. All right. Next up on the list, the Retribution Paladin.
Fuck, man.
It dropped from B tier to C tier together with some of the other specs in here. Yeah, you can talk about Ret Paladins, not trying. They're going to struggle a bit when you're moving past 26, 25, 26 or whatever. But make no mistake, Ret Paladins in a group are amazing.
This is so funny. Well, this is the only thing that I'm going to say. As a tank, right? Tanking keys above 20 and such on Pro Warrior and Blood DK, who is supposedly having a lot of damage.
Yeah.
It's a fucking pain to keep aggro from Ret Paladin. They go from 100. They're probably the spec that goes from 100, from 0 to 100 the fastest.
Yeah.
Although their 100 is a little bit lower than Destros and Survival. They probably have a ceiling on the damage that they can do.
Yeah, I mean, when you start to compare AoE damage, like uncapped AoE damage, let's say from a Ret Paladin to a Windwalker Monk, you're gonna really see the differences over there, because as much as the damage is there, and I would actually say that the main benefit is the burst, because once you pop those wings and Divine Tolian, you start your Divine Storm situation, and this is another thing. Ret Paladins would have been in a greater spot if the tier set, and I'm not bitching about the tier set. I love the tier set bonuses, but it's really RNG. Like, you would see high keys and super performance from Reds if they had lots of procs from the tier set, like lots of Wake of Ashes, boom, there's your Divine Storm. Wake of Ashes, Divine Storm. If the procs get there, not to mention the Seraphim procs, but because it's RNG, it's not reliant. So therefore, you want somebody that's more reliant, and you would probably take a Sub Rogue, not to mention a Survival Hunter, Windwalker Monk, or a Havoc Demon Hunter. That being said, Ret Paladins are a blast. They can deliver. Problems with aggro, of course, but that's due to their burst. When the burst is out, they're still doing good. This is what the tier set bonuses kind of fixed in some way, but there's no really comparison. We're talking about a Destro Lock or a Windwalker Monk. AoE damage, no way. Single target, decent enough as always.
It's good. It's good.
But as a ranking, because we haven't ranked it, it's I think in front of Arms in C tier.
Red and so okay, you can look at for instance the C tier right now. Feral and Red are best friends, and Arms and Assassination are best friends. So they could kind of interchange as well. Feral just has a little bit higher overall Mythic Plus performance in terms of their relevancy in the IO score. Red is like 10 points behind or something like that.
Very minimal difference. Okay, now. Let's get into the S tier, baby, because we have the Sub Rogue.
All right.
No surprise here.
Okay, maybe because with the change of Windwalker buffs, which we're gonna get to eventually, people would have expected Sub to be replaced.
Yeah.
And looking at so it might not yet because the top keys, if you look at Radar.io now, I don't know how this is going to be in a few days.
It's gonna be
if you look at Radar.io now, the top keys don't have a Sub in it, but have a Windwalker, the only melee being a Windwalker, which is it's kind of like the same two teams that keep clearing 31s, by the way. They're using Windwalkers and not Sub. Now this hasn't been quantified just yet. This is just the beginning of the patch. We're gonna have to see. We will need let's say, I would say 2 weeks of Tyrannical and 2 weeks of Fortify before the meta can properly establish with all the new buffs, and who knows what's gonna happen in that time. That does, like, Sub hasn't been nerfed even with all the buffs.
Nah, man, Sub still has its values regardless. I mean, when you're talking about, I know Windwalkers got buffed and you're gonna see them a lot more present, especially for single target. However, this doesn't take away the cake from Sub Rogue. Sub Rogue excels at single target and funnel priority damage, okay? Not to mention 5+ targets and cleave as well. Not as bad as before, not as good as some other specs, like, okay, you can never compare the cleave situation from a survival, but Sub Rogue, apart from its very awesome performance, it still has all of the tools and the CCs and access to fast CC and multiple CC. Windwalker has that too, but Sub Rogue has it a lot more faster to it, and the tools are there. I'm going to be really curious to see if this changes in a couple of weeks with the Windwalker buffs, because at the end of the day, most of the teams want that higher damage, higher performance. Obviously, Windwalker delivers.
Whenever we're talking S tier, man, it's all 30s and higher.
Yeah, it's every 0.1% thing counts.
It's been like less than 12 hours since, because probably most of the logs are NA logs, but it's been less than 12 hours and already everybody's like the top specs are clearing 31s, man. Like, come on.
For sure.
It's gonna pump. It's gonna pump. Plus, we're not even in season 4 yet, so who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Now, another S tier spec. I would say the king, who has retained
reigning
the position. Survival Hunter.
The one on the throne.
Man, listen. We talked about survival last month. It was S tier. We even put it on the thumbnail, Year of the Spear. It hasn't changed, and I'm very happy for it because, again, you can talk about some problems in single target, no way, but dude, when it comes to cleave and AoE, there's just no competition.
It's bombs. It's a bomb there, a bomb there, and a bomb everywhere.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's a hunter, first of all. I mean, it has the hunter utility. But also it's a melee, okay? And I think I saw a comment at some point, like on the last tier list we did on melees, like, what about marksman? Listen, don't get it confused. It's marksman has its own category in the range. This is a melee spec. However, we can.
It's kind of like
it can enable some ranged, okay? Because
that's a cool part, because if you really think about it, survival only really has one melee ability, and that is Carve, which is especially important in Mythic Plus. Everything else can be either shot from range or activated through. Yeah. So it's survival is a very fun. Like I kept saying, this survival is a very fun design spec, which is not a. Which is definitely why I don't have any problem with it being an S tier, because it's a really good design spec. It's a very unique spec where it's a mid-range melee type spec. You can definitely have a lot of flexibility in how you do your damage and stuff like that. So it matters, but yeah, survival is like if there's a time to play it in keys.
This is I mean, you can do it well in raids as well, but this is a Mythic Plus tier list. And now the Unholy Death Knight. I think it's retained its position in C tier. It wasn't B tier if I recall.
I think I think overall it's doing better than last time we looked at it, because I think either last time it was with Outlaw in the bottom of the barrel. Now it's kind of doing a little bit better than Arms and Assassination, which is weird because nothing really changed for Unholy. Likely people are just playing it more, which goes to show what we keep saying, like, you know, when you have a class that has more DPS specs and one is like the king and the other one is not, people are just going to overwhelmingly play the king and not play the bottom spec, and that kind of skews the performance a little bit, since, you know, the best DK players are probably going to be playing Frost while
or Blood
or Blood, but I'm mostly in DPS, and Unholy is probably going to be populated with the fans of Unholy, the diehards Unholies, and people who are just playing Unholy for the fun of it, for the heck of it. But it's doing really good. It's doing better, since it's in terms of in its, you know, relation with all the other specs is just a little bit higher. Yeah,
very similar to Subrogue in the sense that it has access to its cooldown. You know, cooldowns very fast. It's just again a matter of performing at the same level. Like the numbers are not quite there yet, as opposed to some of the other specs. But I think it has the potential, if they're looking to do some tuning in the future. After a couple of weeks, it definitely has the potential to get a little bit more further down the road. We gotta remember, Unholy was doing a lot better in previous seasons, and not to mention, I'm not even gonna bring up BFA. Which brings me to the last spec on the list.
Everybody expected this. Everybody's been talking about this.
Who got buffed? Who got the love?
925.
Here we go,
Windwalker
baby.
Got buffs again.
I mean,
listen. I mean, I think last time Windwalker was
A tier. It was A tier. So this kind of like sealed the deal for Windwalkers with the boss. And remember, guys, it's only a couple of hours of logs. This is going to be very interesting to see in another month from now how things look up. Because I smell some
changes.
Do you think you could take the kick from survival?
Well, that's a very good question, because
I got good questions.
So
here all day,
fuck,
baby.
man, that's a good question, man. Where do you get them? I think in terms of AoE, survival is still gonna be king. However, the single target for Windwalker might take a big leap forward. I definitely see my prediction before Season 4 starts. We're probably gonna take another look at this before the Season 4 starts with a new rotation of Mythic Plus dungeons.
Oh yeah.
Windwalker is definitely gonna outshine Sub. Which is
it can be.
Its AoE is not as restricted as Sub is, and if it solves its single target problems,
I don't think it's a problem of restriction here. It's just a situation of pure numbers. Sub can do great numbers in big packs, but even before the buffs, Windwalker would just take the cake.
Yeah, Windwalker is kind of proc based. I think you need that dance to GG proc, and once you get it, everybody can just go take a sip of coffee, go take a shit, and the pack is gonna die.
The damage, the single target damage is still there. The performance is still there. The question is, will the buffs affect the comparison between the two when it comes to single target and final priority damage, right? If that happens, then yes, you can forget about sub-rogues, utility, and all of that. You're gonna take Windwalkers, because at that level, every 0.1% counts.
That's the thing when it comes to tier list. We're obviously advocating you play whatever you want. However, when we're talking about S tier, we're talking about people who are pushing 31s now, likely 32s, who knows, maybe even 33s before the season ends. And those teams unequivocally usually just have, which is kind of an oxymoron, only 2 melee specs at the very most. I hardly ever see more than 2. I barely see 2 to begin with. And there's 3 melee specs in S tier, which means that somebody's not gonna cut it. And if you're going to be pushing those super high keys, like Marcelian said, every percent matters, you're gonna take the 2 absolute kings.
Yeah.
And if they're like perfectly balanced, maybe we'll see some survivals, some subs, some Windwalkers dashed around. But if like 2 are obviously performing better than the last one, we're probably going to see, I'm predicting this, before before the season ends, when we're gonna get back to Melee and M+, one of the S tier specs is gonna be A tier. My money is on sub.
Yeah, and you know where our money is? On our Patreons, because they make everything on this possible. Thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for supporting this stuff, and as always, CurseForge for sponsoring the video. Remember, this is like the best add-on manager you can have. Just check the link in the description over there. You can get the list of add-ons we use and basically get yourself something new or just update your existing add-ons.
Nice, you deserve it.
And plus, the app now is standalone, so you don't have to go through Overwolf and just get the app and it's all good. And thank you for watching the video. You have yourself a great, sunny, shiny, awesome, blossom, possum weekend.
Take care, everybody.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.